I actually finished writing a book, and honestly, it was nothing like I expected. It took late nights, clubs, a breakup, and getting attacked by a bird to do it, but here we are. Welcome to Arvik. Today I want to share how it all started, what the whole process was like, the good parts, the struggles, and how my friends and family reacted along the way. Before you ask, no, you can't buy it or even read it yet. It's all on a Word file on my computer, but I am planning to publish it as soon as I can. I am done with the actual content, but there is still some work to do with the cover and the actual publishing itself. Today it's gonna be more about how it feels to actually write, to get ideas, and my interactions with people after they found out about my book. If you're curious, it's a book of poems written in Romanian, and it's a combination of a journal, descriptions of nature, philosophy, motivational stuff, and some unserious comedic skits. All with rhymes, of course. Back when I first started, I wasn't even thinking that this was gonna turn into a hobby, so I absolutely wasn't planning to then turn it all into a book. I just tried something new and was like, not bad, I might have some talent. Spoiler alert, I was actually terrible at first. Somehow for a couple of months I didn't notice my lack of skill, so I kept going and did experiments and games and made the process fun. I tried to follow rules like using rhymes, and I kept the same number of syllables for each line. It was complicated, but finding the right words that fit was like a game. The biggest difference and change in style in my journey actually came from two things: a breakup and deciding to abandon any rules other than rhymes. I was really emotional and in my head at that time, and that made me very creative. I wasn't actually planning to write, I would just pull out my phone with my notes app regardless of what was going around, and I expressed myself through writing. That led to some interesting results. For example, I wrote a bunch of poems in clubs at 4 AM, like I would just stop dancing and go sit down to write full poems. Or I went on a few walks alone and described what was around me, but my emotions really reflected in my worldview. Most of my poems were done in one moment. I opened my notes and wrote the whole thing. Usually it takes like 30 minutes, and the longest one took me 2 hours. To be honest, I expected writing to be like a serious thing where you sit down at a desk with tea and a candle and work for hours every day, but my process was much more chaotic. I wrote the majority of my poems at night and in the most random places, like on the street, in clubs, in bed, or even in a train looking out the window. None of it was planned, and a certain idea or feeling or image would just come to me, and it was enough to finish the poem if I started writing right away. I never procrastinate for this and risk losing the inspiration. My favorite moment was when I was walking to the mall and I actually got Newtoned. As in hit in the head by a flying pigeon that gave me inspiration. Here's a translation of the first thing I wrote right then. You have all of the sky but not enough space to fly. It sounds like a deep metaphor, but when you know the truth it gets funnier and way less serious. So it's been tested, that's the real secret. Go out and try to get hit in the head, you will become a prolific intellectual. For legal reasons, you didn't hear that from me, it's from George Washington. One of the best things about writing is that it makes me feel better every time. Unlike a YouTube clip or an university assignment, I consider every poem a complete win. There are no grades or statistics, and I feel like the day was well spent regardless of how much time I wasted. I am also surprisingly okay with the idea that people might not notice my writing this century. However, it could be in some poor student's final exam 200 years from now, and that makes it all worth it. Help the future generations? Absolutely not. I will make them fail a useless exam with my nonsense cryptic writing, metaphors, and titles that have hidden meanings. I even have an actual poem where I outright say that as a joke, but it would be hilarious if it makes it to an actual test. Jumping to a more serious part, there is another side of writing that is really significant. I have to admit that I am almost unable to read some parts of my own work. As I said before, my poems are made when I really feel something or when I get a powerful idea. That usually happens in a negative headspace, and it is often reflected in my writing. When I am very happy, I can't really write because I'm usually already in a conversation or doing a physical activity that I can't or don't want to stop. Oh my fucking god. I was thinking about the gym, but it sounded sexual. No! With this natural filter, my book got a lot of introspective, deep and even depressing stuff, making it very hard for me to go through. I know what's in there, but it still gets to me because I also remember the moments when I was writing and I get brought back to that time. It's an experience that's probably hard. That's probably hard. Fucking hell. It's an experience that's probably hard to replicate as a reader, but it could happen with a relatable writer. Unsurprisingly, to me, I am the world's most relatable writer. Except for my first few poems. Fuck that simple, silly guy. Another important part of my experience with the book comes from the interactions with friends and family. They were mostly great. Nobody has critiqued me for picking this hobby, and that is awesome. My friends even told me that my poems are good, and talking about them made me feel proud of myself. However, sometimes at home I've been compared to Bacovia, which is like a famous emo-sounding Romanian poet from 100 years ago. It was definitely deserved, but I still have mixed feelings about that. Nobody has ever said that my work is bad, but my parents think I should write happier stuff. Still, having a book you wrote is like a special ability you can pull out in conversations, because if nobody has anything to say or you get called stupid or something, you always have that on you. That was all for today. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Have the best day ever and see you later. Also, go out there and write a book.